Welcome to the Relation Stitch podcast, where we discuss theoretical and spiritual principles related to relationships, marriages, family, and parenting. I'm your host, Clyde Fraley, licensed marriage and family therapist with my wife and co-host, Stephanie. Let's get started.
Well, hello. Welcome once again to another fantastic episode of Relation Stitch. We're going to focus on envious, that love is not envious, and that love is not boastful and proudful, but not just what it's not, but what that actually looks like in demonstration.
Yeah, in practical terms.
Exactly. Absolutely. So just as a quick reminder, if you haven't had a chance to listen to those other episodes, I'm going to just real quick run through the scripture that this is based on. And I'm reading out of 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse number 4. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. And we mentioned in the last episode how this is just such a great example, not only of what love is, but especially as we think about how this operates in marriage. So we're going to focus on today the does not envy, does not boast, is not proud. And by the way, did you know this scripture is trending? Did you know that?
Russell Brand did a video, right?
He did. It's so cool. We just saw that on Instagram earlier this week. And I was watching it. You know, he's a pretty cool guy. He's got a lot of interesting things to say, but it was pretty awesome how he took actually the scripture, and instead of saying love is patient, love is kind, he encouraged his viewers to actually put their name in there. So Stephanie is patient. Stephanie is kind. Stephanie does not boast. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good way to get a barometer or a reading on your relationship. Like if you can say all those things about yourself.
Yeah.
Then you're probably a narcissist because
We'll
get to that.
We'll get to that. We'll cover
But it's
that.
a good way to figure out, oh, I'm not patient, or I
Yeah.
am kind, or you can kind of look at your strengths and your weaknesses. I thought that was a really cool exercise that he figured out.
Yeah. So good job, Russell Brand. I'm glad you're watching our Relation Stitch series and that it inspired you to do that video.
Yeah, it did. All right. So the first one is being envious. And so, again, this is on relationstitch.com. And what we did was we broke down the words and we defined it according to Webster, according to the Greek, and then we have what that attribute looks like in action.
Yeah.
And so some of these are telling you to not do something, not to envy. So in this instance, I would say that attribute in action is like the opposite.
Right.
So how do you be content?
Yeah.
Which is one of the antonyms for envy.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Exactly. So just for, to kind of further elaborate on being envious. So the definition of envious is a feeling of covetousness with regards to others' advantages, success, and possessions. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes you think, well, that might be a little bit difficult because when you think about being in marriage, isn't my possessions your possessions, my success your success? Well, why would I be envious? But actually, that can be a pretty big obstacle for a lot of relationships.
It was for us when we first got married, and I see this with a lot of young couples, is they start out in life and maybe... So I didn't get my college degree right away, and you did. And so you excelled in your career a little quicker than I did. And there was a point where I remember having a conversation with one of my friends, like, man, she's really crushing it. And it kind of, my pride took a hit, And, but then I began to realize her success is my success.
Yeah.
Because even early on, we thought of ourselves as a unit. And it took a minute to get our footing on that, but once we realized, look, I'm your biggest cheerleader and you're my biggest cheerleader. And together it's about family. It's
Right.
about the Fraley name,
Right.
not the Bonk name or just the Fraley name, but the Fraley as it is
As a unit.
today, as it's
Yeah.
combined.
Yeah.
And so I began to relax with that. And I wasn't so, jealous, I guess.
Yeah. So it sounds like that if envy enters the relationship or enters the heart as it relates to your spouse, that could then even lead to some jealousy and some resentment then too.
hmm Yeah. What can happen is the rejection is the feeling that like your partner is choosing something other than you.
Mm,
So, like in our instance, I felt like maybe because you were really running after your career and pursuing it pretty hard, and I felt a little bit left behind. And so that created a little bit of a feeling of rejection,
mm,
you know,
hmm.
which can lead to jealousy, which is, I want what they have.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah, I could see that. I could even see that on the flip side if maybe when the couple meets, they're both maybe in college, they both have kind of these dreams or aspirations for what their life will become. And then maybe the family makes a choice for, the one of them to stay at home with the kids and essentially set aside their career or their ambitions for the sake of the family. So I could see that. I know in your instance, it was, I guess, a little bit reversed, but really it seems like that could be actually a very common situation, especially if you have two very goal minded and success minded individuals at the start of their relationship.
So, yeah, I agree. That can lead to jealousy, and jealousy is a result of rejection,
Hmm.
right? So, when you were pursuing your career, I got a little bit, um, felt rejected because you
Right.
were spending a lot of time at work.
A perceived rejection.
Right, it was perceived, right?
Right.
And so what happened was I felt jealous, and if left unchecked, that jealousy can turn into emotional embezzlement. So embezzlement is when you have access to something, like in the financial world, it's like you have access to all these accounts and then you take it.
Mm.
And so like I could have, because I have access to you, pushed you down or try to sabotage you in some way as a way taking that from you to bolster my own esteem.
Mm. Yeah.
Or you can do that with others. Like, let's say I just let you do your thing and you're succeeding in your career, and then I reach out into another relationship with maybe someone else that I know, and I get emotionally invested in them because now I'm talking, bad about you
Right.
to one of my friends or even one of your girlfriends, and then that grows into something that's inappropriate.
Right. An outlet in which now that balance has shifted,
hmm
where maybe you no longer feel like if we're on scales, that if it's this way, that now that other outlet allows you now to kind of be the counterbalance. Like, oh, okay, I'll let her do her thing, but now this gives me the feeling that I need, or that missing element that I'm not getting.
Yeah. And that's actually a really classical example of triangulation. So we're in a relationship and then there's stress there. And to temporarily relieve that stress, we bring in something or someone else, right?
Mm,
So instead of talking to you about it, I talk to them. And now there's a triangle there.
right.
And so that's what that happens with emotional embezzlement a lot of
Yeah.
times. It creates a triangle.
I love that term, emotional embezzlement. It just really creates such a great picture of what that looks like. Because we know embezzlement, but man, that's awesome to think about that from an emotional perspective.
hmm
That's really, I love that term.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like the term. I like the picture that it creates. I don't like the emotional embezzlement. Let's not do that.
We need a jingle.
Emotional embezzlement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's not do
No,
that.
let's not emotionally embezzle. Okay.
No, no. So, okay, so now how do we counteract that? How do we make sure we keep that from being fostered in the relationship?
Another thing that's really important to understand is that you're going to go through cycles in your relationship. And so, because I didn't have my degree as soon as you had yours, right? There was a little imbalance there.
Mm,
But once you got established, that gave us the freedom for us to now focus on my career.
right.
And it kind of goes like that. At least in my experience with us, it's like um, there'll be seasons where you travel a lot, and so I'm kind of on lockdown, and then that changes, and then we put a lot of effort into my practice. And
Right.
if you can see your relationship long term,
Yes.
like what is our end game? Well, our end game is to have a happy, thriving, healthy family.
Right.
You know, it's not for me to make more money than you or vice versa, or
Right.
for me to have more success than you. We all kind of take those successes and we celebrate each other together,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yes.
And another thing that I may have touched on, I can't remember, but if you're thriving in your career and you're chasing your dreams, you're a happier person. And that brings a better atmosphere to the house, and you're more fun to be with,
Right.
right? And so that's the other thing where if I'm always jealous of you, and then it gets into this place where now I'm paranoid. Oh, she's traveling and this and that, and she gets to have all this fun, and I'm stuck at home. You can't look at it like that, because what's the alternative?
Right.
Me to keep you home, and
Right.
you're bored and you're not feeling fulfilled and you don't have a purpose.
Right.
You're miserable, and then we're fighting all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think it's also very, we talked a lot about the person who potentially is feeling jealous, but I think it's also important for both partners to recognize that this could be an area of risk in the relationship, and for both parties to nurture that, because whereas one person needs to be on guard and keeping in mind that we are a team and I need to guard against jealousy, I think it's also important for the other person to make that person feel a part of the team too.
Hmm.
That it's not just I'm going and having my career and thanks for being a cheerleader behind me, but to reinforce that it takes both of us to make this happen. And the more we can affirm each other in those moments of potential risk or potential opportunities for jealousy, then the stronger of a unit we become.
Hmm.
And if I know you're good, then I can do what I'm doing more effectively, because I don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, is this going to cause him to feel a certain way, and vice versa. Like the more we can be eye to eye, face to face, and say, look, we are in this together, then we can fend off some of those potential areas of jealousy.
So that's what envy looks like internally. Now, there's also envy, whereas maybe a couple or as individuals, we're looking at other people and other people's relationships, and we're comparing
Mm,
ourselves to them.
yeah.
And we're trying to be, oh, the Joneses have this big house and they have this, that, and the other, or their relationship looks like this and they're so in love and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's the grass is greener scenario. So I love what Dr. Mary Nichter, um, she was my supervisor and a dear friend of mine. She said, the grass may be greener on the other side of the fence, but you haven't seen their water bill.
This is true. Oh
There's a
man.
price for what they have.
Oh goodness. That is so much wisdom in that.
Yeah.
Like when you look at anything else, another person's marriage, another person's life, man, you are getting about this much of what's actually happening.
Hmm.
I love that analogy. That is so good.
Especially social media.
Oh man.
Since when does anybody ever post? Well, I know people do post maybe their real life, but typically they're posting stuff that presents them in this certain way, in this certain frame, and it's usually
Absolutely.
always positive. And I guess that's okay, but it's that's not the reality of the
Mm-mm.
relationship. I get couples in all the time, very successful CEOs and high performers, and they come in and they're like, people think we have the perfect family, and we're falling apart,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Because the facade looks good. The
Mm.
white picket fence is bright white, and
Yeah.
and all that. All the exterior stuff is there, but internally they're hurting.
Yeah.
So be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
And there's this. It's called the halo effect.
Okay.
All right. And so this is another thing that you should be mindful of. And it kind of pertains to um, social media a little bit. But basically, the halo effect is if I see an attractive person, I'm going to think that I'm automatically going to think that they're highly intelligent, capable, and successful,
Wow.
which speaks to that facade again.
So I think for me, what I'm walking away with is a posture of gratitude. That we just talked about unity and being each other's teammate, but also just being grateful for what you have, and because you don't know what really is on the other side of those lenses you're looking through when you're looking at somebody else's life.
So that's why it's really important that you have a family mission statement and you base your decisions on your family's morals and values, and you know what your end game is.
Right.
And that helps you stay in your own lane and not get distracted by what other people are doing.
Yeah, that's good. That's
So
really good.
for me and my house,
For me and my house, that's all that matters.
yeah, we're going to serve the Lord and
and
all these other things.
and accomplish the mission.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, I think, the next evolution of jealousy. I think they're very closely connected, but potentially maybe on the other side. Whereas here we were talking about, kind of defending against allowing a jealousy to rise up. Now we got the other end of that spectrum. Do not boast and is not proud. To boast is to speak with exaggeration, excessive pride, especially about oneself. And we're going to tie that into the next one, is not proud, which is having or showing a high opinion of one's own dignity, importance, or superiority.
So if you think about boastfulness and pride, what psychological disorder comes to mind?
Narcissist?
Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
That is not a winner.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
That is
Narcissism is it's that's not good.
Yeah.
I mean, the way the Bible talks about it is almost directly correlated with the DSM-5 is. The DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual, and that's what mental health professionals use to diagnose mental health disorders.
Okay.
And so, narcissistic personality disorder, there's like these 5 criteria. So, grandiose sense of self, preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success and power, believes that he or she is special and unique, requires excessive admiration, has a sense of entitlement, right? Which is an unreasonable expectation of especially favorable treatment. They exploit their interpersonal relationships. They lack empathy or unwilling to recognize or identify the feelings and needs of others. This is nasty.
Yeah.
It's often envious of others, which is funny, right? Because we just
Right.
talked about envy,
Yeah.
and it shows arrogance and haughty behaviors or attitudes.
Yeah.
And we're seeing so much of this in the world today.
Yeah, we really are, which is unfortunate, but something that needs to be dealt with.
Hmm.
Because man, you can't have a healthy relationship. I mean, basically it's all about me.
Hmm.
Me, 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 me. That's it. That's all that matters. I'm awesome. I'm amazing. The rules don't apply to me. Your feelings don't matter. Only my feelings. And I think that can also manifest not just in what you would typically think of somebody who's, very arrogant and very, over the top, but even for somebody who's like, my feelings, are more important than your feelings. And, so you need to cater to what I want. And that's an ugly one.
Hmm. If you can't ever get to the position where you're thinking about your partner in those terms, like wondering how they're feeling and
Yeah.
checking in with them, and it's always about you,
Yeah,
the relationship is doomed.
it is. And
Selflessness is the number one, or at least in the top few characteristics of a healthy relationships.
correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just making an assumption on this one, but it seems like this would be the one that is most likely to lead to a divorce. Because to me, it seems like that is an indication of the relationship is not number one. I'm number one, and the relationship needs to cater to me. And I mean, maybe you could have somebody who would be willing to go along with that, but man, that's a hard road to carry, to always make sure that I'm pleasing you and there's no reciprocation.
Depending on your attachment style. So let's say you're married to a narcissist and you have an anxious attachment. You're willing to put up with a lot for the fear of abandonment. And
Mm,
so a narcissist will find a person that's like that, that will put up with all of that abuse and give them all the adoration and really prop them up.
mm-hmm.
And but if a narcissist tries to get together with somebody that has a secure attachment or an avoidant attachment, because an avoidant will just be like, I don't need you, and
Right.
they'll walk away quick.
Yeah.
Same with a person that has a secure attachment. Now, if you're with someone that has a disorganized attachment, um, that's going to go up and down, and it's going to be really volatile. It'll be
Right.
really hot, and then it'll be really cold.
Right.
And so, and I think a lot of times, I need to do more research on this, but as I'm thinking about it, I would think the narcissist has a little bit of that disorganized attachment
Yeah.
because internally there's a self-esteem issue there. Okay. So either they weren't regarded at all as kids, or they were, or the parenting style was very permissive and they got everything they wanted
Over
and
validated.
the coaches validated them.
Mm-hmm.
That's what participation trophies do. Oh, you did great. You did awesome. No, you did nothing. You did not earn that.
Right.
And that's the society that we're in right now. It's like you don't even have to show up hardly anymore to get your name
Yeah.
on a plaque,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's what it creates. It creates narcissists.
Mm.
Now they feel entitled.
So I think the demonstration of the narcissist, yeah, that is,
Toxic.
it's very toxic.
Mhm.
But I think this could also even not necessarily be that extreme. I think boastfulness and proudfulness can also creep in a way that's more subtle, but still very damaging to the relationship. So when I'm thinking about one of the synonyms of does not boast, one of them is exaggeration, and under is not proud, being presumptuous or self-importance. I almost could also see this as being demonstrated with those always and never statements. You always are lazy. You never care about what I have to say. You see what I'm saying? Like you making these broad statements and exaggerations about behavior that then introduces another crack, another wedge in the relationship that could be very harmful.
When you hear the always and never, there's a couple things that could be happening. One is that because they might have a narcissistic flair, like just a touch of it, or they're boasting or proudful,
Right.
they could be in that position where they have these blind spots and they're self-absorbed and they're selfish and they can only see their point of view
Right.
and they're not and they have that bias, and they only can see it from their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so in fact we know that things are very, often in the middle.
Right.
The other thing is it could be true. And so in the case of a narcissist, it might be accurate to say always. Because you could say, you always exaggerate because they probably always do. You always feel entitled because they probably always do.
Or you never care about what I have to say.
And so that could be true for them. And so that's one of the things that you could work on in your relationship is trying to have more objectivity with that
Right.
and listen to your partner. It's like if my partner keeps telling me always and never, I need to stop and think about it.
Yeah.
Be like, okay, I never put my socks in the hamper. So over the next month, I'm going to pay attention to that.
Right.
So you busted me. You busted me a couple weeks ago. You're like, I don't know if you said always, but just so I can say that about you. You said something like, you always leave the cabinet doors open. And I'm thinking, I never leave the cabinet doors open. So then I started paying attention. And sure enough, I didn't always do it, but there's times I walked away from the microwave and the door is still open, or the spoon drawer is open. And so I went back and closed. I'm like, okay, I need to work on that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So if we're hearing always or never, it's a great prompt for both people.
mhm,
For the person who's hearing it to sit to do that self-awareness. Okay, is this true? Am I actually demonstrating this behavior? But then also for the person saying it or feeling it to say, is it really true?
mhm,
Do they really never do this? Or really, because never and always, those are absolutes.
mhm.
Those are pretty strong statements. Now that we understand these kind of behaviors, which could be risky in our relationship, now how do we demonstrate that differently and in a way that's more healthy and can help avoid some of these things from getting into our relationships?
The biggest one is trying to be more selfless,
Yeah.
you know, and thinking about your partner. But in practical terms, with the boastfulness is you running your mouth a lot and bragging about yourself, you know, and so humility is a posture that
Yeah.
that you should work on, you know, and 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 don't let your words speak for you. Let your actions
Yeah.
speak for you.
And let's be honest, it's humility, getting another dose or demonstrating more humility in our life doesn't just benefit our relationships with our partners. It benefits all relationships with
Hmm.
your work relationships, with your career. A little bit of humility is not going to hurt anybody.
So I like watching YouTube videos of like kind of like boxing revenge videos. So you'll get these fighters or these boxers, and they'll be doing the press conference,
Yeah.
and there'll be one boxer who's really cocky, and
I'm the
and
best.
another one that's really calm.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it's that calm one that ends up winning the fight.
Yeah.
That boastfulness and that flash and all of that. And so I was thinking about that and how humility is a calm emotional state in those who have healthy self-esteem and regulated emotions.
Mhm. I mean, the Bible says pride goes before the fall.
Yeah. I so I was thinking about that one too. It's like, what does it mean by that? And I think what it is pride is you have this exaggerated sense of yourself. And so let's say you apply for a job and you talk your way into it,
Mm,
but you don't have any of the skills, you're
right.
going to fail.
Oh, yeah.
So that pride and all that boasting and you talking smack, somebody bought what you were selling.
Right.
And then once you got in that position, you couldn't perform.
Right.
And you even maybe convinced yourself you could do it. And so that one's humility. So I think the next one is like, especially with pride, is being modest.
Okay.
And so I like this: regard others to the same degree you esteem yourself, and lower the estimate of your own importance. Which, man, that's tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it
Because
is.
if imagine you've been told your whole life,
You're
"Oh, you're
amazing.
great,
You're
yeah."
great. You can do no wrong.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You come home and you get a D on your test, and your mom blasts the teacher because this, that, and the other are making excuses for you, and they
Yeah.
change the grade, or who knows what's going on, and they're, no,
Yeah.
that creates a monster.
It's okay to let your kid fail every once in a while.
The reason failure makes them better is because that feeling of disappointment will drive them to become better.
Yeah,
And there's a
absolutely.
balance.
There is.
And then they get the real satisfaction of a victory or
Right.
a good grade or
Right.
whatever that is. It's like, man, I worked hard, and they see the reward
Yeah.
for their hard work.
Yeah. Absolutely. So settle down, Mama Bear. It's okay. You gotta, the only way your cub learns to fight the fight of life is you gotta let him get in the game every once in a while and learn how to throw a few punches. Of course, I'm not advocating violence, but hopefully you get the illustration. You have to let them for this if you want them to have healthy relationships later in life, you got to let them go through a little bit of pressure.
Hmm.
That's the only way you're going to make a diamond is with some pressure.
I like that video of the cat. She just pushes her kitten off the stairs. Or the bird, mama bird.
That's true.
You're going to fly today.
I'm going to make the
or you're
nest
gonna hit the ground.
uncomfortable.
Either
Fly,
way.
baby bird, fly.
So, yeah.
You're going to figure it out. Or the parents that are just like, oh, you're going to learn how to swim today.
Because you know what? Little Susie or little Johnny, they're going to be in your basement till they're 45 years old, and you're going to be supporting them.
That's
I
right.
mean, I know we're really rabbit trained.
Right.
But all of these conditions.
But it's important. I
Yeah.
mean, the narcissist becomes the narcissist because of the conditions that they were developed in as a younger person.
Mhm.
It's important. How you raise your kids is important.
So we want to be content, and we want to have humility, and we want to be modest.
Yeah,
That's how we offset those.
absolutely. And be mindful of your partner. Again, you're in it together. When you made your commitment at the altar or in Justice of Peace or wherever it was, you said, I want to be with you. Be together. Be a unit. Be connected. All of it falls into place if you are thinking about your partner first.
Hmm.
All right.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
If you need therapy, give me a call. Go to
Yes.
relationstitch.com or ClydeFraley.com, and I'll hook you up. Thank you for joining us today. Visit relationstitch.com for free downloadable worksheets related to this episode and to access our relationship courses. If you're struggling in your relationship, go to relationstitch.com to leave a prayer request or to schedule a therapy session with Clyde.